Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Daniel Nikic, and he is a global investment specialist and founder of COHRES. And he has spent more than a decade analyzing 15,000 plus companies in the US and Europe and Middle East, spotting trends in AI software and data before it hits mainstream. Daniel now helps entrepreneurs and investors identify smart opportunities, manage risk, and grow with confidence. Daniel, thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you for having me, Gary.
So, Daniel, give us your background. What got you into, the global market? What really got you into watching the different trends and stuff that are going on that are affecting this market?
Okay, so I have to go back to my background.
Yep.
So I'm originally from Canada, and when I went to university at Brock in St. Catharines, it was a pretty multicultural university. There was a lot of foreign exchange students from like China, there was from India and etc. And then you hear about different stories. And I had this one course in my last year of university called entrepreneurship. Well, pretty basic name, but
Yeah.
And in this course, we had to make a business plan. So we would get a certain country. So we had to research on the country, what like natural resources or what type of product or service you want to sell, and pitch it to these so-called investors. And I had Nigeria. And at the time, I was looking with my colleague about waste management and etc. So kind of using garbage and processing it to be reusable energy. And what was interesting, this one entrepreneur who was like this investor who was at the class spoke to us and he said, interesting enough, we're all connected and you guys have to look at the global markets. We're not back in this 1960s or late 50s where Detroit was #1 city in the world, the car industry, and we saw the changes. And he said an interesting story that he invested in ice wines in Abkhazia, so near Georgia and Russia. And this was during the war back in like 2008. And I was like, interesting. And it kind of opened like my mind. It's like you have to look at opportunities globally. You can't just look at, oh, if it's a good economy, you got to just work there. You have to think globally because we're all connected. It could be from supplies, as we see with raw materials that's coming from Congo. We see about uranium or lithium that's being used for electric cars and etc. And then that started getting me more interested in research. And then I started it in management consulting, where I would do comparative research from domestic companies to international companies when I moved to Croatia in 2009. And moreover, I started to get more and more into research because I always felt like if you have the research, you could back it up, as they say,
Right.
if you make a statement. And I think that's more and more important, especially if you're dealing with successful individuals and professionals, because they'll question to be like, why do you think this way? Well, it's based on this information that I found. I think this is the reason. And I worked in commercial real estate, which has also got me more into investments because for a lot of individuals, if they don't know about commercial real estate, if there's a developer who's building a shopping center or office building or even logistics center, they build it and they usually sell it to a fund. So that got me more interested, okay, about funds. And then when I opened my company, I wanted to focus on my strengths in market research and financial management. And then I started learning about family offices and investors. And that's where I got more interested in the global markets. And then you see, it's like, hold on, a lot of these companies are built based on problems that they see in their domestic areas. And that really got me clicking. You have to see what's going on in the world, and hence supply chains. I think we noticed that with COVID, when we saw there's a big delay, how dependent I would say North America is on China in terms of supply chain. And we see with Russia and Ukraine, hence the grain fertilizers. And I'll give a quick story. There was one American. He was looking for fertilizers, where to get it, because he said once Ukraine and Russia, the fertilizers, he's like, I gotta find fertilizer somewhere. So he's looking into Poland, et cetera. He's looking at transport routes for shipping from the east coast of the States all the way through Croatia and et cetera. So it's very interesting when you hear about that stuff.
I mean, that's that, when you bring up the points about, during the COVID pandemic and how, North America, was very reliant, and there was a lot of stuff that we did not have, and there was, the scarcity, that was there. Um, how, looking at the different technology that's out there that you're using, obviously doing to do research and stuff. Um, how are you able to use that to help you predict, what these companies are going to do or what they're going to need, to be able to help figure out if they are a good investment?
That's a good question. So a lot of time when I work with investors, they'll be like, we want to invest in this company. Look into them and what's their competition doing? And or is their competition getting funding, or have they been acquired? And a lot of times I feel that entrepreneurs or early stage companies want to compete with the big guys.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, they should be thinking maybe I should complement with them. And then if it grows to a certain level, they'll acquire me because they'll need that certain pattern from a company or certain information. Hence, we saw with Scale AI when they got acquired by Meta. And we see it a lot of times. And I think a lot of times early stage companies, they fail to understand that they're not the only one that has this product. A lot of times they have competitors, but they haven't heard of them yet,
Right.
or they're more indirect competition. And overall, I would say that you really, when you're trying to compete and trying to see, like, is your product needed to grow, you have to be able to pivot. And I've pivoted. Initially, I was thinking of just doing like experts market research and financial analysis. Then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go more into investment research. And I'm pivoting again when I'm looking into utilizing AI because I see how much AI has taken over research. A lot of people, they don't even use market research, they use ChatGPT
Right.
to do or cloud or etc. And I think you have to be able to pivot and use your strengths and skill sets to be like, okay, what's going to happen in the future? Now we see AI is going to be quantum next and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I think that, looking at this, for people that own their own businesses and stuff, what should they be thinking about beyond their business, where they are, looking from the global standpoint? I mean, I think that, the example of the guy trying to find a fertilizer, is definitely one. I know that in the US there's a lot of effort to bring back things being made here instead of being so reliant on everywhere else in the world. With that being said, I mean, how do you see that upsetting the global market, or do you see that even affecting the global market?
Oh, definitely. Definitely it's affecting the global market. I'll say, for example, my parents, they came to Canada in late 1960s from present-day Bosnia and Herzegovina. During that time it was Yugoslavia. And they said you can come to Canada, you can find a job so quickly. It could be from mining, it could be from manufacturing and stuff. And we see those jobs decrease significant. Like when you look at it, Detroit, if I'm not mistaken, in the late 50s was the richest city in the
Mhm.
world. And then you see Toyota came in, Japanese auto manufacturers, more German cars and etc. And with America, for example, trying to reestablish their industrial sector, it's going to take a lot of jobs. But I think in some ways it's going to change a lot how people conduct business. They're going to have to be more contingent in terms of worst case scenarios, which we saw with COVID. Because, in my opinion, because I worked with a lot of companies that had to get the PPP loans. Those who don't know, the PPP loans was when the government was lending money to companies during COVID to survive. If it wasn't for that, my opinion, I think a lot of companies would be huge pro well, they probably would be bankrupt, to be
Oh yeah,
very quite
yeah,
frank.
100%, 100%. I definitely agree with that. Um, how do you see with what's going on with tariffs? How do you see that affecting the global market at this point?
I think it has really changed the thought of cheap labor in a way.
Hmm.
I think a lot more companies that probably went the route of using Southeast Asia or Pakistan or to manufacture their products. They're probably gonna be like, let's see if there's other countries, maybe more towards South America, Central America. We know Mexico has a lot of manufacturing
Hmm.
plate sector that's growing, hence America. And my opinion, I think every country should do what they think is best. That's always been my opinion.
Sure.
And I think in some ways, if there's a trade deficit, you have to think about how you can fix it. But also, I think every country should be thinking, how can I get more jobs or think of strategic ways to improve the job sectors? Because if there's less jobs, there's going to be less spending power, and it's going to be a huge domino effect. And I think the tiers have changed immensely. Well, how the world's thinking. We see what's going on with the EU, and we saw what's going on with China negotiating with the States, how much that's impacted, and with India, because a lot of manufacturing jobs are being shipped to India, for
Mhm.
example, when it started. But I think it's also going to make companies who get their supplies outside, for example, the States, to really think about, okay, maybe we shouldn't just rely on one supplier. Let's diversify
Yeah,
who we get our supplies from. And I also think with let's just say the explosion of AI, they're going to try to look into other ways to manufacture robots and stuff. And we hear constantly jobs being cut due to AI. See, if Microsoft cut 9,000 jobs, and this is a tech company due to AI and stuff, that's a big sign. And they're never been bigger.
yeah, yeah. Um, what, I'm going to circle back to, earlier you talked about, these smaller startup companies and stuff like that needing to look at their competition, look at what the bigger people in their sector are doing, and try to find a way to either not directly compete or to be able to complement what they have. What are some other things that they should be looking at?
Sometimes it's good to merge. I've seen companies that are two startups, they're somewhat competing. Maybe it's better that they merge to be more efficient and to survive for longer and grow together. That could be one. But I think a lot of early stage companies, they look for investments. We know from VCs or it could be from some angel investor. And a lot of times they shouldn't just be looking towards the money aspect. They should be looking, what else can these investors offer me? And I've seen a lot from European early stage companies who want to enter the American, or they can be from Israel, Middle East, etc. One of the main things they say is like, how can you help me network my company?
Right,
Which is very important because they feel networking is more important than money up front. Because they say, if I need money, I'll just go to the bank and
right.
I'll pay interest on it. Well,
Yeah, yeah. I think that having, again, when you go back to when you were young, or much younger, I should say, then, it was how did you get a job? Lots of times it was because somebody knew somebody and put you in contact with them, so that's the same thing with this. Um, what are some of the I'm going to say the red flags or pitfalls that you see out there right now that businesses aren't really paying attention to, and they should be, because it's really going to interrupt, market flow.
I would say cash flow. I think companies spend more money on what they need. I think they probably are too big of a team than what they need.
Hmm.
I think that's one thing that companies they expand so quickly and then they fire so quickly, so the turnover rate's quite high. I would say that's a big red flag. I think another red flag is companies have to be realistic. Reputation is very important. I think, the old saying, it takes 20 years to build a reputation, but it takes 20 seconds to
Yeah.
ruin it. And we see it a lot of times. In my opinion, the individuals that I respected the most, they were very much about reputation and being respectful. And I wouldn't say nice, I would say kind. Because I think that term gets like respectful, kind, but you have respect is a big thing. And I think not just in terms of business, but in general in life.
Right, right. Um, in what industry do you see right now is going to be kind of the next on the global market, the next kind of booming industry? Or do you see
Okay.
there really isn't one right now?
Well, I would say I don't say AI is an industry. I see it more as a tool, kind of like the internet's
Right.
tool. Quantum, I see as a tool, but we're still not close in my opinion.
Mhm.
I think energy is going to continue growing. Data centers, because everything's on the internet mobile. And if you just walk by, you can go to a mall or a park.
Oh yeah,
Everyone's on their cell phone, even little children today.
yeah,
And I have children, so I see how much of it a struggle is. And when I was younger, parents couldn't get me to go inside the house after playing hockey
yeah,
or basketball.
yeah.
But I definitely think data centers, energy, I would say health is always going to be a booming sector. I think we definitely see with mental health after COVID. I think that was a big, and I think it's going to continue to grow because there is some benefits about social media, but there's also some negatives too. Because I think some people feel like they're not succeeding in life because they see this fake facade that people are showing on social media. It could be YouTube or whatever. So, but number one, energy, and we see it. There's wars over oil and energy.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think that's definitely definitely been a lot of bloodshed over that for sure. Um, Daniel, what have I not asked you wish I had?
I would say, what market do you think is doomed to disappear? Because we always hear about what are the next markets, but what I think sometimes people should think about what markets or industries are towards the decline immensely. Like we hear about, I would say back in the day, we heard about horses and carriages when automobiles or post, like mail. So there's always an industry that's going to go in decline, I think.
So where do you think is going to be that industry that is going to be, declining or going away soon?
In my opinion, I believe the decline is probably going to be this is going to be tough, but I think the entertainment industry, I wouldn't say decline, but it's going to change a lot with artificial intelligence and stuff. Because we see now there's AI movies and stuff,
Yeah,
and I think I want to say specifically decline, but it's going to do a big change. Because I think we're going to see actors acting with AI characters, kind of like, I don't know if you remember the old movie with Al Pacino, Simone.
yeah,
It kind of reminds that the made up. I could
right,
see that happening in the
right.
future.
Huh. That will be interesting, and looking at that, and you'll still have the actors doing some of it, but not all of it, and so much of it is looking, you know, so real. That's interesting. So, Daniel, if people like what they hear, they want to learn more about you, they want to learn more about what you do, how can they reach out to you? Where can they find you?
Well, they can check me out on my website at danielnikic.com. So DanielNikic.com. Or they can reach out to me at LinkedIn. I have a pretty unique name, so it's not hard to find.
Right. Very true. Very true. Hey, I really appreciate your time today.
No, thank you very much, Gary. It was great talking to you.
Great. Hey, this week my guest was Daniel Nikic, and he is a global investment specialist and co-founder of COHRES. Say that for me.
COHRES.
COHRES. Thank
Yeah.
you. Appreciate your time, and I'll see you guys next week.